Welcome back to the Kempire Daily YouTube channel. I'm your host, TheKempire, and this is our weekly recap of Love and Marriage Huntsville. And I know what you're thinking. What do we have to talk about? What do we have to recap? Before we get into any of those things, be sure to like the video, be sure to subscribe, and be sure to check out the latest episode of our podcast, Kempire Radio, on your favorite podcast platform. The visual version will be available on the Kempire Radio YouTube channel. And as always, where are you guys watching from, and how would you rate this episode? Disclaimer, not really disclaimer, but I had to go Google Schmoogle and try and figure out why this episode was not under my new episodes. Technically, it was under my new episodes, but it wouldn't play. It would take me to season 5, and then there was no new episode. That's because either YouTube TV or OWN, for some reason, labeled this episode season 3, episode 29, which for me is hilarious because so many of you said, Carlos King, we don't need a 30-episode season. And literally, this episode was labeled 29. I don't know who's to blame. It could be YouTube TV. It could be OWN. Get it together, though. Get it together. Before we get into the episode, you probably are wondering, or you may have heard, the Love and Marriage Huntsville reunion will be 3 parts starting on December 31st, leading up to the premiere of Love and Marriage DC. As you already know, Monique Samuels will not be returning. It sounds to me that Monique filmed for this season, and we talked about this before. She filmed for the season, and last minute, due to maybe she wanted more money, I don't know. She said the contract wasn't right. But you filmed. So I find that to be interesting. And now they're saying that the couple from, Joy and the other guy from Ready to Love are probably going to be promoted to full-time. I can guarantee you they're going to be promoted because, like I told you, from the promo, it looked so haphazard to have only 2 couples. It seemed weird. But I'm going to check it out. There's also going to be some sort of Love and Marriage DC special that will be happening as well. Oh, run me my check. I'm joking. But the amount of promotion I'm doing right now, but I'm trying to give the information to my audience that do want to know what's happening. All right. Rewind. Okay, so we're going to get a 3-part reunion. Some people are saying that is too much. What do we have to talk about? Well, in all fairness, we didn't get a reunion for season 4. Word on the street, this season that we have now that's being labeled season 5 was supposed to be part 2 to season 4. So I don't know what they're considering it. I'm considering it season 5. We're going to have a 3-part reunion. They're probably going to talk about everything from season 4 and address everything that's happened now. Of course, they're going to talk about Sheree. They were talking about Sheree this episode, and next week's episode, they're talking about Sheree again. All right. So as you know, the last that we were talking about, they were in Destin. Mel had it all hanging out in Destin when they were leaving. Seems like everyone was in a better place. As you already know on social media, we know that doesn't last long with these two. And you can already see the hints of things happening in this episode for us to be like, uh-oh, they're going to go back to their toxic place. We'll get there. Well, we opened this episode with, first of all, Tisha looked good. I didn't necessarily love the multicolored hair, but I was just looking at her face. I was like, Tisha's a beautiful woman. She really is a beautiful woman. I don't always love her ways. I like this particular scene. Okay, let's talk about it. And I see a lot of you talking about this on social media, and here's my thoughts. I was really, taken aback, and it looks like Marcel was as well, when she was upset about him texting Melody, who they've known for years. And I get it. She considers you your enemy. That's her big fighting point. She says, I'm her enemy. You shouldn't be texting her. You should not be texting some woman without me knowing. We should be on a group chat. And I know Tisha has always sort of been like old school, but I'm just like, really? And audience, live chat, those of you in the replay crew, how do you feel about that? I know some women do agree with her. Let's be real. Let's not be holier than thou all of a sudden. There are plenty of people that feel that way about their boyfriends or their significant others or their husbands, that no, don't be texting these people. I find that to be so interesting. I'm like, really? it says more about your relationship than it does about the other person. But the running joke, everyone has always felt like Marcel has always had his eye on Melody. And then seeing their separate meeting. Okay, so this was date night for Tisha and Marcel. And he invited Melody to so that they could meet. When they finally do meet, they're talking about Mark. You know, the man that we don't mention, but I had to mention him here. So you already know, we saw that conversation. It seems as if Marcel and Maurice are scared of Mark for whatever reason. I don't know why. But he basically says to Melody, as long as you and Van don't bring him up, there won't be any issues. So it's a warning. And Melody in her confession is like, if I had known that he was bringing me here to talk about this, I wouldn't have shown up. Because Kimmy brings up a valid point. I think it was Kimmy who brought up the valid point later. Was like, well, or was it Tisha? I don't remember. It doesn't matter. But the valid point was you were going to see Melody at this group dinner at Kimmy's house. You could have had the conversation then. Or did you just want to see Melody? Or did you just want to film a scene because you wanted more airtime? I don't know. But there is a little something suspicious. But Tisha, here's the thing. Like I said, there are plenty of people that will agree with Tisha. There are plenty of people that feel the same way that Tisha does. I just wouldn't let people I wouldn't let people see me sweat, especially because you're filming on television. But in all, here I go twerking on the fence. In all argument's sake, that's why she's great reality TV, because she's not afraid to be vulnerable and show her real feelings on television, so all of you can judge and laugh and have opinions. Me, on the other hand, you think I'm gonna let Melody know that her presence or her texting my man is affecting me? Oh, hell no. That's not happening. But that's why Tisha's great television. Some of you are like, really? Okay, but this is why she's a good reality person. Okay, she's better than I, because she's able to show herself and how she really feels. But Marcel was just like, what is wrong with you? Why are you so upset about this? I thought you guys were in a better place. Even though he does say, well, you know, at the dinner that we had, I could tell that both of you have not moved on. And she's like, well, she says she sees me as her enemy. Well, for argument's sake, her inviting Melody to Black and you inviting yourself to Melody's vacation and you not having a side conversation with Melody, people could have that argument too, Tisha. Because to be honest with you, I'm not going to go visit you, even though you're going to visit Martel. You know he's with his family and with Melody. You think I'm going to stop and go see you if you consider me your enemy? No, I'm not. I'm not. So they had that back and forth, and I really didn't expect that back and forth. Sidebar, they do talk a little bit. They didn't really say exactly Sheree in that instance, but they were talking about Martel. And then, Marcel tried to bring up the whole, in comparison to him meeting up with Melody, her meeting up with Martel. And she's like, no, that was about business. This is something about personal. I might have to agree with Tisha on that one. There really is, to me, it's two different things. But either way, I don't feel like it's a big deal. I don't. Anyways, so Martel meets up with Chris Fletcher. Chris Fletcher, we see every once in a while. We've seen his wife every once in a while. He's in real estate. As you also know, he was part of the reason why we saw the pictures with Sheree in Huntsville, because they were all hanging out together. We find out later that Martel says he met Sheree through a mutual friend, and all of you said, who, Carlos King? I think it was Carlos, but I'm thinking maybe also Chris Fletcher. Okay. So they go to this warehouse to, he's trying to figure out a place to host another wine event, because, he had one in Atlanta. So Martel is really trying to get this wine going. So he wants to have an event and invite everyone to it. And they go to this warehouse, and it's like, this is not a space to have a wine event. I can see possibly if you do it right, if you move stuff. But if you look behind you and everything that's there, it's like, there's a little too much. There's a little too much going on. There's a little too much work that you probably would have to do. But it looks like they end up having it there. I don't know. Let me turn the snow off, y'all. Just because I don't want to invite the snow. If you're just joining us, this is our weekly recap of Love and Marriage Huntsville. Don't forget to like the video. It's an easy and free way of supporting not just my channel, but other channels as well. And don't forget to subscribe to the channel. Don't forget to subscribe to our backup channel, Kempire Radio, also where you're able to see a visual version of our podcast, Kempire Radio. Anyway, so back to this. So he's talking with Chris Fletcher, and then it goes into a conversation about, remember Uncle Sam and how Uncle Sam, Martel's Uncle Sam, was upset about Martel's speech and how he didn't really mention his grandmother and Uncle Sam's mother? Well, he says Uncle Sam wasn't talking to him, but his mom ended up talking to Uncle Sam. He didn't talk to Uncle Sam for like a week, but now they're in a better place. Uncle Sam will, of course, be at this next event. And I'm sure, even though the preview shows him messing up the speech, I'm sure he's going to get it together, I hope, and mention his grandmother. Okay? But then I didn't expect this. I didn't expect Chris Fletcher to get into the mess, because he says he has beef with Marcel, because Marcel, when everyone was talking about him being in Atlanta, Marcel was saying, well, I was with Chris the entire time. And Chris was like, no, you weren't. You weren't with me the entire time. I showed you a couple of properties, and we were together for like 2 hours. So where were you, Marcel? Where were you? We just want to know. I'm sure Tisha wants to know. And hopefully that came up during the reunion. Marcel, he's just going to give us some runaround. As I said to you before, this is sort of like Marcel's redemption season. He's coming across like the best guy in the better relationship. They're not running around with this narrative that he's a cheater, pumpkin eater. Okay. Look, okay. So they have beef. Chris and Marcel have beef. I don't know if this is going to play out. I don't know how many more episodes. There can't be that many more episodes, because December 31st is part 1 of the reunion. So I'm thinking next week or the following week. I'm thinking next week is the season finale, because I don't even think Christmas Eve. I hope y'all not trying to put an episode out on Christmas Eve. I mean, you're already putting an episode out on New Year's Eve, when everybody named Mama will be out and about New Year's Eve, which is a Saturday. I'm just saying, Carlos, I'm trying to help y'all out, but this is what y'all want to do. Y'all want to keep getting those. I'm just saying, I won't even be in the country. I know I won't be watching, so don't expect a recap from me. Just saying. Okay, maybe no promises. I plan to be out and about. Okay, just saying. All right. So we had that conversation. Marcel meets with Melody, as I mentioned to you before. It really was, to me, it was also a nothing scene. Part of the reason why, because if you didn't notice, this is pre-recorded, but this is why, because I just feel like we will be rehashing the same thing over again that we've been rehashing. And basically, Marcel in this conversation, I feel like Melody, if I'd known that this episode was going to be what it was, I would have not shown up. So he talks about Mark in this situation and what Mark was doing. And apparently Mark had another episode of something, and they didn't really talk about what he did on social media. I think they're just trying to avoid from talking about Mark. And that's what he warned Melody not to do. Don't talk about Mark anymore. And she's like, I'm usually a responder. Unless he says something to me, I'm going to respond. I don't blame you, Melody. I just would leave that alone, because if Marcel and Maurice are scared, it makes me wonder. It makes me wonder, like, what is he capable of? Okay. So the best part of this episode, and to me the most important part of this episode, is the dinner at Kimmy's house, and we get the core group together. The comeback group comes together, and this is when Kimmy tells everyone about her cancer. So, of course, her brother-in-law and sister-in-law know. However, Melody and Martell do not know. Before we get there, so they're catching up. Of course, Tisha wants to bring up the whole conversation about Marceau texting Melody separately, and she wants to know Kimmy's thoughts on that. And Kimmy's like, well, I already told Maurice, don't let it be where I find out from other people that you went to lunch with a friend, a female friend. See, I told you, some women really do feel like that, okay? But I get it. To each their own. Everyone has different rules in their relationship, and there's nothing wrong with that, especially if your partner's okay with that or feels the same way. And maybe they don't. You have every right to your feeling. All right. So they have that conversation. Marceau is cooking. At first I was like, whose house is this? I love your kitchen, Kimmy. So Marceau is cooking, so Kimmy doesn't have to. They're loving on Kimmy. At one point, Marceau, after Kimmy tells everyone, Marceau says, thank you for allowing us to love on you for the amount of love that you've given out. And I thought that was such a profound thing that he said, because literally as she's telling Martel and Melody about her cancer diagnosis, I think to myself, it's like, if I was ever diagnosed with something like this, or just anything, I probably would keep that to myself and maybe tell only a small group of people. But like I've said before, I think it's been valuable that she shared this journey with so many people and on television, because I think she's going to help a lot of people. And I think that is just a testament to how great Kimmy is. But that is, after Marceau said that, I was like, well, that's why it was important for her to tell. But I know it has to be hard to constantly be having this conversation with friends and family over and over again. And then people, and people and their reactions are also different and colorful, that you're just like, okay. Shout out to Kimmy. She just finished her cancer, her chemotherapy treatments. And I saw that she rang the bell for because she completed that on social media. So Kimmy tells, well, before we get to that, so Sheree comes up. Because at this point, while they're filming, the whole Sheree story, as you know, we've covered it. If you missed any of the coverage, just Google Schmoogle, Kempire, Sheree, Martel. It'll come up, the amount of time that we've covered this story and the paparazzi shots that seem so staged between the two. And in this conversation, Martel says, yeah, she's a friend. We were introduced to, through a mutual friend. He says it's just a friend. But as you know, Sheree, when she was stopped by paparazzi in a random part of Atlanta, I don't even know if it was in Atlanta. I don't know where she was. And she was like, yeah, she basically said it was a relationship. And I told you, this feels like a scheme that all of them set up for the BS. Carlos King, Sheree, Martel, all of these people benefit from it. And as you can see, they're mentioning Sheree on the show. I wouldn't be surprised. They're probably trying to negotiate behind the scenes to have Sheree be featured on the show, even a little bit. And look, who gains from this? Love and Marriage Huntsville. Because no matter how you feel about Real Housewives of Atlanta, those ratings were solid last season. Despite how you felt about the season or these women, those ratings, although they're not what they were in yesteryear, still nothing's stopping those ratings. Those ratings for Atlanta were more than double what Love and Marriage Huntsville is currently getting. So this helps them by having someone. It brings that audience over to OWN, because there's still a lot of people that don't know about Love and Marriage Huntsville. Okay? So, and some of you say, Carlos, you talk more about Real Housewives than you do your own shows. And look, and I'm not one of those people, Carlos, that say you should not be able to talk about your experience, even if you didn't produce Real Housewives. I feel like you've produced reality TV. I feel like you have a right to talk about it. But some people say you could probably do a better job at promoting your own shows than these other shows. Just saying. But look, if this is a scheme that you set up, this was a smart one. Maybe we shall see what that will do for Love and Marriage Huntsville. So they do talk a little bit about Sheree. It looks like they will be talking more about Sheree next week. I don't believe this relationship still. Even when he's broached the conversation of Sheree, I'm a body language expert. I am very intuitive. It just felt like, yeah, you are not feeling her in this way. And I know Coleslaw's been talking recently, and I don't care at this point. Oprah, she was coming at Carlos, because they're not going to have her on the show. Girl, go do something else. Go do something else. All right. So finally, Kimmy does tell Melody and Martel about her cancer diagnosis. And of course, their reaction is like, oh my gosh. Now it makes sense why Kimmy reacted the way she did at Stormy's house. And Martel in his confessions is like, Kimmy's always been everyone loves Kimmy. everyone. The audience loves Kimmy. That group of friends loves Kimmy. So for her, of all people, to be going through what she's going through, it's just like, wow. Why does this always happen to good people? I know what you guys are thinking. I'll say it for you. Why does this always happen to good people? And she's still just so positive and still carrying the emotions of all of this for everyone in this group. But like I said, when Marcel said that, thank you for allowing us to love on you the way that you've always loved on us. And I think that's why it's important for her to be so transparent about this journey that she's going through. So I thought that was nice to see the group again together, the core, three coming back together again. And of course, now they're talking about this is, and everything pales in comparison. All these little dramas, and look, yes, these little dramas will still exist. They will forever have co-parenting issues. Tisha and Marcel will always have their issues. But when you have someone going through a health crisis, your focus cannot be on all these other things. That's why a lot of people are like, a 3-part reunion, what, we're going to rehash all this craziness, and we got Kimmy over here, going through cancer. They still got a job to do. They still have advertising that they, spaces that they have to fill. It's a business. We get it. I just don't know if it deserves a 3-part, but like I said, we didn't get a reunion for season 4. So they're going to probably talk about everything from season 4 into season. But all you're going to say, everything from season 4 was the same stuff that we talked about in season 5. Notice that we didn't get Destiny this week, Tiffany. Last week we talked about Tiffany announcing that she's pregnant. Congrats, Tiffany. Did anyone miss Destiny? I didn't. Sorry, Destiny. So Kimmy's going to have this conversation again and let them know too. God bless Kimmy. God bless Kimmy. God bless you all. It is a Sunday. I hope that you guys enjoyed our recap. A short but brief. Because look, we can talk and go back and forth, and I love hearing your conversations. But like I said last week, I said sometimes these things could be an email. Now I'm going to click send. Guys, as always, be sure to like this video, subscribe to the channel, hit that notification bell, and so you never miss out on breaking news when we go live or when we upload. Be sure to check out everything you missed this week. We had quite a few stories that we've been covering, from Good Morning America to Wendy Williams, and of course, everything in pop culture news. As always, I will see you guys in the next video. And don't forget to say thank you to our mods. Happy holidays, everyone.